بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ليس لك من الأمر شيء أو يتوب عليهم أو يعذبهم فإنهم ظالمون. Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu, he was a slave and he was black. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a lot of big work of deen from him. Gave him one of the biggest responsibilities, such a responsibility that was not given to any other sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in fact to any other companion of any other prophet that ever came into this world. But before we go into mentioning what that responsibility was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put on Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu, very briefly I'm going to ask you a very quick question. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the Cave of Thaur when he was migrating from Makkah Mukarramah to Medina Munawwara. Does anyone know how many days he stayed in the Cave of Thaur? Any differing opinions? Does anybody know which way the Cave of Thaur is from Makkah Mukarramah? South. You see, Medina Munawwara is northeast of Makkah Mukarramah. So most people think that the Cave of Thaur was coming on the way, so it must be north. But in reality, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was taking a different route because he knew that the Makkans are going to follow him. So he went south first, and then he went along the shores, and then went northeast towards Medina Munawwara. Amr ibn Fuhaira, as I was mentioning, was black and he was a slave. He's amongst those people who's mentioned in the ayah of Qur'an Hakim when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ, the weak ones of the men. Weak ones specifically referred to those people who lived in Makkah Mukarramah and who had no families. This referred to either slaves or those who were free but their tribes were not from Makkah Mukarramah. Because of that, they were unprotected against the persecutions of the Makkans. So he was amongst the mustada'afina min al-mu'mineen. And because of that, he would be persecuted a lot more than those Sahaba who were amongst the Quraish. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him strong on his deen and he remained steadfast. There are seven people whom Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu freed in Makkah Mukarramah amongst the slaves. One of them is very well known, Bilal ibn Rabah radhiyallahu anhu. Another one was this Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. And there was five others, of which three of them were women slaves, whom Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu freed himself with his own money. There was a lot of wealth in that time. He was a wealthy man and he tried his best to help the Muslims in any way he could, and this was one of the ways that he tried to help the Muslimin by freeing the slaves who had accepted Islam and were being persecuted for being Muslim. It's well known about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he migrated from Makkah Mukarramah to Medina Munawwara with Abu Bakr Siddiq, but in reality there was two other people with him. One of them was a man by the name of Ibn Quraybit, who was a mushrik and he was a guide. He was an expert trekker, as they say, who knew the ways, the normal routes and alternate routes of how to get from one place to another. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu had hired him specifically for taking them along a different route to Medina Munawwara. The second person besides Abu Bakr and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. And this is why Urwa ibn Zubayr says about him that Amir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a very big responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq in his hands. And that's why he was aminan mu'tamanan. Imagine the one who was most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed that beloved one in the hands of Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. Because nobody knew about the migration except a few people. One of them being Amir ibn Fuhaira, who also ended up migrating with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq. That's why he was called, just like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's title was Ameen, he was also called Ameen, the trustworthy one. Because he was given the trust of taking care of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq, and he did not betray them, and therefore he became Ameen. Mu'tamanan, he's also called Mu'tamanan, the one who was entrusted with a big task of watching over and guarding over two of the most greatest people in the history of mankind. It's mentioned that once Talha bin Ubaidullah radhiyallahu anhu, he's one of the Ashara Mubashara, those whom the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam promised will be amongst the people of Jannah. He had an argument with Amir ibn Fuhaira about something, and he raised his voice a little bit. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by, and he became angry with Talha bin Ubaidullah. He says, Talha, you raise your voice in front of Amir ibn Fuhaira, فَإِنَّهُ شَهِدَ بَدْرًا كَمَا شَهِدْتَهُ. He is also among those people who joined in the battle of Badr like yourself. You must give him respect. As I mentioned in the very beginning of this talk that we started first day, I mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a very special place in his heart for the Sahaba who participated in the battle of Badr. This is just one example of that. That he did not tolerate anyone, including a person who participated, a veteran of the battle of Badr, to raise his voice against another veteran of the battle of Badr. He did not allow it. So he said, the Amir ibn Fuhaira is amongst those who participate in the battle of Badr, don't raise your voice. وَخَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِمَوَالِيهِ. And the best of you is those who are best to your freed slaves. Mawali also referred to those who did not have any tribes, who were not attributed to any tribe. There's an incident mentioned about Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu that many of us may have read in the books of Seerah, especially regarding the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he left from Medina Munawwara. There's a whole story about his migration, but there's some parts of that some people know and some of us do not know, which relates to the biography of Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu, which we'll go over very quickly. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given the revelation to leave Makkah Mukarramah and to go to Medina Munawwara, he arrived in the daytime at Abu Bakr Siddiq's radhiyallahu anhu's house, which was outside of his normal time of visiting Abu Bakr Siddiq. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu had already prepared 2 camels as mounts for them to ride on. And they both left from the back door of Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu's house. He entered from the front door, but they entered from the back door, which is called a khawkha. It's usually smaller, and it's usually used for slipping out, just for going, not for regular ingoing and outgoing traffic from the house and outside of the house, but every now and then when you want to go somewhere, then this was used for that purpose, the khawkha. It was from here that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu slipped out of Makkah Mukarramah, got on the camels, and they left Makkah Mukarramah in the afternoon. Now remember, in the afternoon, people were sleeping because it was too hot to do any work. So in Arabia, people used to sleep in the afternoon. It was just like leaving in the night. Some of us would say, why would you leave in the afternoon? That's like when everybody's awake, you're doing it right in front of people. But in Arabia, where it's very hot, that was the time when they did their qaylula. In fact, we read an ayah of Qur'an Hakim yesterday about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bring the punishment when they're doing al-qailun, when they're doing their qaylula. The Arabs understood that because they did qaylula. When they arrived in Thawr, the Cave of Thaur, Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu had instructed Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu to graze the sheep. And he was the one who would take care of the sheep and the herd of sheep that was owned by Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. So he instructed him to graze the sheep in the daytime in the same place where all the other Makkans grazed their sheep. But at night, bring it over to Thawr, the Cave of Thaur. So Amr ibn Fuhaira every single night for 3 nights would bring these sheep to the Cave of Thaur. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu would milk the sheep and then he would feed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from that. Also, Abdullah bin Abi Bakr, Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu's younger son, he would come every single day during these 3 days to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq to inform them of all that was happening in Makkah Mukarramah. So to give them the latest updates. Obviously, when he went to Thawr and when he came back, it left a trail because it was a desert, it was a sand, so his footsteps would leave imprints. So it was the responsibility of Amr ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. He would bring the sheep at night and then they would drink the milk of that and he would stay there the whole night with Abu Bakr Siddiq and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then in the morning after Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr would leave, he would follow behind with the herd of sheep so that the imprints that were left would be removed. This was his responsibility. So 2 responsibilities that he was given. Number 1, to make sure that they get milk every single day. And number 2, to wipe out the trails or the imprints that were left by Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. But that was not all. After Abu Bakr Siddiq and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out of the Cave of Thaur, Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu would seat Amr ibn Fuhaira behind him in his camel for the reason of taking care of the needs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. So throughout the way he was doing their khidmah. All the way until they arrived in Medina Munawwara, his responsibility was taking care of their basic needs. So such a big responsibility was given to Amr ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. Imagine his status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll read one more thing about him, inshallah. We'll end that. There's very little information about Amr ibn Fuhaira in the narrations because he was martyred in the 4th year of Hijrah. Of course, this much is known that he participated in the Battle of Badr. That in itself is a proof of his high status. And then he also participated in the Battle of Uhud. And 4 months after, he went out on a expedition in which he was later martyred. So, Amr ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a high status by giving him this responsibility to the extent that there's another incident that takes place that is also very specific to Amr ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. There was a man, his name was Amr bin Malik, and he was from Najd, the eastern provinces. And he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam presented Islam to him. He did not accept it. But at the same time, he was very warm to Islam. He was willing to accept it. So he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ya Muhammad, why don't you send a group of your greatest Sahaba to my area? If they call my people and my tribe towards Islam, the likelihood is that they will accept Islam. So he wasn't willing to accept Islam himself. But if his tribe members accepted Islam, he had nothing wrong with that. He said, that's okay, I don't mind. This is Amr ibn Malik. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that point said one thing. He said, Inni akhsha ahl Najd. I fear the people of Najd. In other words, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had this fear in his heart that yes, if he sends some Sahaba to that place, the people of Najd, they're different, very harsh, and very hypocritical. Right now, you're telling me that They will accept Islam, but who knows, there's something else inside their heart, and when they go there, they will kill them instead. And that's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. There was a nephew of Amr bin Malik. His name was Amir ibn Fuhaira. He was a very evil person. Very evil person. He hated, there was no reason. Muslims had done nothing to him. Islam had done nothing to him, but he hated Islam. And he hated Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's mentioned in some of the narrations that he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after 70 Sahaba were martyred by him. He instigated it. He came to Medina Munawwara and he, instead of apologizing and asking for forgiveness for killing some of the greatest Sahaba, whose names some of we will mention inshallah later, he said, I present to you 3 options. Imagine his arrogance. He said, I present you 3 options. He's telling Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 1, after you die, you make me your Khalifa. Number 2, if you don't want to make me your Khalifa, then at least you become the Nabi, the Prophet of the people of the city, and make me the Nabi, the Prophet of all the people outside of the cities. So we can divide it. Third thing, if you don't accept any of these 2 options, I will ally with Banu Ghatfan, which was one of the biggest tribes in Arabia, and we will come to you in groups of thousands and thousands with the best horses and we'll wipe you out. He's telling this to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam refused to accept any, obviously, and he left. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cursed him, and on his way, he developed some type of a blister on his body, because of which he was forced to alight from his mount, and he went to the nearest house by that place, and there was a woman who took him inside the house. He was in extreme pain, and he said, I don't want to die in a house of a woman in such humiliation. So he said, put me on my mount. So they took him and put him on his mount, and he was on his way back, and he died while he was on the mount. And after he died on the mount, his body fell down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a humiliating death. This was because of the curse of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon him. This is a brief history of this person, Amr ibn Fuhaira. Anyways, Amr ibn Malik, as I mentioned, told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you tell some of your Sahaba, send some of your Sahaba to my region in Najd, there's a likelihood that some of the tribe members will accept Islam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent 70 Sahaba. And these 70 Sahaba were hand-picked by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because of their knowledge of Qur'an and their beautiful recitation of Qur'an Hakim. They were called the Qurra. One of them was the maternal uncle of Anas bin Malik radhiyallahu anhu. In other words, Sulaym radhiyallahu anha, her brother, whose name was Haram ibn Milhan. He was one of them. There were many others. Another one was Amir ibn Fuhaira, who was also sent into school. Amr ibn radhiyallahu anhu. There were many great Sahaba. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent them out. When Amr ibn Fuhaira found out, this Khabis, when he found out that there's a group of Sahaba and they've camped in an area near a well which was called the well of Ma'una, Bi'r Ma'una. This massacre that happened is called the massacre of Bi'r Ma'una in the history books. A very well-known incident. And it happened in the 4th year of Hijrah, only about 4 to 5 months after the Battle of Uhud. They camped out in this place called Bi'r Ma'una. Amr ibn Tufail, he found out, and he went to the tribe of Banu Amir, asking for their help to kill all these 70 Sahaba ridwanullahi majma'in. Banu Amir refused because his uncle Amir bin Malik had told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had expressed his fear that I don't know, the people of Najd, I don't trust them. He said, don't worry, I give them asylum, I give them protection. So don't worry, Ya Muhammad, everything will be okay. So when he came to Banu Amir asking them for help to kill the Sahaba ridwanullahi majma'in, they refused. They said, we don't want to break the trust of Amr bin Malik. So he went to nearby tribes, Banu Zakwan, Banu Ra'al, Banu Asiyya, and Banu Sulaym. Banu Sulaym was a tribe in whose region this well was, the well of Ma'una, where the Sahaba ridwanullahi majma'in were camped. They came and they killed every single one of them. Every single one of them. Except Amr ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu. And there was one other Sahabi whose name I don't remember. He also was left alive, but he was severely injured in this. The person who killed Amir ibn Fuhaira, he narrates this incident. He said, we came upon the valley where they were located, and they saw us. They took out their swords and we fought, and we were in the thousands, they were only 70. We killed them. I came upon Amir ibn Fuhaira and I took my sword and I took it through his body. And I saw that as soon as I killed him, he said one word. He said, Fustu wa Rabbal Ka'bati. I have triumphed. I swear by Allah, I have triumphed. These words always echoed in the mind of Jabbar, because he thought, here I am killing him, I am the one who have triumphed. I am the one who is victorious. And here he is saying to me, Fustu wa Rabbal Ka'bah. So this always remained in his mind. Later on, he asked one of the Muslimin, what does this mean? The person I killed, he said this. He said, he meant that he has died in the state of Iman, so he is successful. Inshallah, he's going to go to Jannah for sure. Because of that, this person, his name was Jabbar bin Salma, he accepted Islam. Just because of these words by Amr ibn Fuhaira, he accepted Islam. And when he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to accept Islam, he narrated his whole incident. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed his name from Jabbar to Abdul Jabbar. Your name is not Jabbar, your name is Abdul Jabbar. You are the slave of Jabbar. He also saw another thing. He said, when I took my sword through his body, ذُهِبَ بِعَامِرٍ. Amir was taken right in front of me, عُلُوًا فِي السَّمَاءِ, all the way to the skies. حَتَّى مَا رَآهُ, until he says that he could not see him any longer. He came back and told this whole incident to Amir ibn Tufail, who didn't believe it. Amir ibn Tufail told some people, go and count the number of people who have been killed. They counted all the people and there was only 69, there was one missing. So Jabbar said, see, I told you, I saw him. He was raised into the skies right in front of me. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained later on, فَإِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَارَتْ جُثَّتَهُ وَأُنزِلَ عِلِّيِّينَ. The angels hid his body and he was raised to the Illiyin, the highest level in Jannah. He was never buried in the earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved him so much that he didn't even want his body to go into the earth. He took him to the skies. And he is the only person besides two other people who were raised to the skies and were never buried. Number one, both of the other two were Anbiya. Number one, Idris alayhi salatu wasalam. It's mentioned about him that he was also raised to the skies. Number two, of course, the one we all know, Masih ibn Maryam, Isa ibn Maryam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayah of Qur'an Hakim, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. They did not kill him, they did not crucify him, but it was made to look as if they had killed him and they had crucified him. بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him to the skies. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is powerful, He can do it. Some people reject that Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam was raised to the skies. Even the Christians accept this. They say that he was crucified, then he was buried, and then he was raised again. There's a specific term that they use for that as well. I don't know what it's called. But he was raised to the skies again. So they even believe in the ascension of Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. But Amir ibn Fuhaira is proof himself that Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam was raised to the skies, because if a Sahabi can be raised into the skies and not be buried in the earth, then for a Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, it's not a big deal. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that with a Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then it's no big deal for a Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam who is at a much higher level and more beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In summary, what we learn about Amir ibn Fuhaira radhiyallahu anhu's life was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at the skin color. He does not look at your status, your slave, your free man, your occupation. He looks at the condition of your heart. Amir ibn Fuhaira accepted Islam before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even came to the house of Arqam. Subhanallah. Those Sahaba who would sit with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the house of Arqam are called the Sabiqun, the ones who accepted Islam the first. They are the vanguard of Islam, the first to accept Islam. Amir ibn Fuhaira accepted Islam even before them. And he faced more suffering and more persecution because he did not have a tribe to protect him. And because of his steadfastness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a big responsibility by which he was called Ameen and Mu'taman. And because of his fulfilling that responsibility, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not put him down in the earth like He does everyone else. He lifted him to the skies because he became the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make us like Amir ibn Fuhaira. May Allah make us all like Amir ibn Fuhaira. May He make us like the Sahaba. May He accept us like He accepted the Sahaba Ridwanullah alayhim ajma'in. So this is the story of an unknown Sahabi. Very few people know him. When we read the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we hear about there was one person who was the Mawla of Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu, who was there to give the milk to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq. But we didn't know that this was the same Sahabi who was so blessed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him to the skies. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.